it comes to those relationships, always choose to be gracious. Look at what Paul says in verse 16. Verse 16 is a very painful verse. He says, at my first defense, no one came to stand by me, but everybody deserted me. He's talking about his court date. So Paul got arrested for preaching the gospel. Back then, it's kind of like back today. When you get a conviction or something, you go and you stand before the judge. And what should have happened is people like Luke and Crescens and Titus and Pudens and Claudius, all those people who were there in Rome, they should have showed up at Paul's trial date. They should have been there to serve as character witnesses. They should have been there to pay his bond or whatever to try to get him out of prison. But Paul says in verse 16, nobody showed. We don't know why. We don't know all the reasons, but the point of the matter is Paul was incredibly disappointed because the people who should have been there for him, the relationships that should have come through, didn't. The relationships that should have been a source of encouragement instead became a source of pain. And in the face of that disappointment, what does Paul choose to do? Look at what he says, verse 16. Nobody came, everybody deserted me, but may it not be charged against them. In other words, in the face of disappointment, Paul chooses to be gracious. He chooses to forgive. And if we're going to be successful in the Christian life, if you want to finish well, one of the principles that you've got to embrace in your life when it comes to your relationships is to allow your relationships to be grace-based. Grace-based relationships. The word grace just means to treat people better than they deserve to be treated. Because God has treated you better than you deserve to be treated. So in your marriage, you love your wife, treat your wife better than they deserve to be treated. I know everyone's wife's perfect, so this may be irrelevant, but let's say if they ever did make a mistake, you would treat them better than they deserve to be treated, not because they deserve that, but because God in Christ and his love has treated you better than you deserve to be treated, and so you give grace. When they insult you, make you mad, you give grace. With your children, with your coworkers, with your enemies, with the people who upset you, you give grace not because they deserve it, but because God has given you grace. Now, when you base your relationships in grace, it just changes everything.